Stacy, do you feel accomplished?
I, in the deepest, darkest parts of my soul, want to cut a cartwheel, but my 53-year-old body ain't gonna let me do that. But that's all right. Yay! Okay. Besides, Mary, you're the one that ought to feel accomplished. I hear you, Wake County teacher extraordinaire.
Listen,
You're killing me.
that shocked the mess out of me today when they walked in my classroom with that award. Because it's only elementary school teachers, you know, no hate to y'all, that ever win that thing up here.
It's nice to be recognized.
Okay, 6 bells. And as I look at us here, I see the most intriguing screen is with Andy, who's having to blow her food to cool it off. So what is it tonight, Andy? What are we eating tonight?
I don't know if you can see it.
So that's like
sour chicken and some sticky rice.
Yeah, little Oriental food. That's good.
Made that in the Instant Pot. It took all of 8 minutes.
Well, it'll be a good supper, and I'm not sure you'll be full, but it'll be a good supper. All right, welcome everybody. I heard the conversation, so Stacy was kind enough to send this to me. There's Mary's award that she received today. And we congratulate Mary for being recognized. And I think that is just terrific. So Mary, well done.
Yay.
Thank you. It was quite the shock first period.
It's a good way to start your day, isn't it?
It definitely was. I'm just
Probably
glad that
topped only by being with us tonight, would you say?
that's right.
Yeah.
Great start and a great ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
She
That
said
was a
that
good
with
answer,
straight
Andy.
face. I'm
Yeah.
amazed.
It was a really good answer. Seriously, well done, Mary. That's wonderful.
Appreciate it.
Everybody, welcome. I know this is an emotional night for all of you as you realize that this is the last class you'll have with 601 on a Tuesday. And probably you just said, I cannot believe how sad I am today. And we will be back together for 601 for the Maxwell book on, what is that? October 9th, is that it? And remember, we will do that virtually, and we'll take plenty of breaks, but try to get all 21 laws done in a prompt fashion. Maybe 15 minutes apiece, a little bit of conversation. So we'll have a good time with that. News from the large men department. CVS and Gastonia saw both Steve Laws and Dale Lamb today to get our booster shots. They have not had that much wait in the store, probably in the history of it. And it was the one at the Court Drive there with the hospital, if anybody's familiar with Gastonia. But they got me first and they said, oh my God. And then Dale walked in. And that had to be a double, oh my God. But anyway, we have the option to get the vaccine and booster. And so, Dale, you sore? Is your arm sore?
Not yet.
Yeah, I'm not either. And we both got the flu shot while we were there. Or I did.
I got my flu shot last Monday. And so my arm was sore for 2 days from that one, but so.
Well, maybe that's why mine's just a tad sore.
Yeah.
But I could still go out and do whatever. So, but anyway, we have the, you all will appreciate this because Dale and I are 64. We're not 65. So, 65 is the magic age. And so we're both 64. So the lady said, well, sir, how do you qualify? And I said, I'm an educator. And that was it. Boom. And and all of you would recognize that because you see college football or whatever else, that college kids, masks do not exist. So when we go to campus, we are rather exposed, I guess you could say. So we are thankful for this opportunity and thankful for the scientists who have done so much work to make this possible. All right, so let's start with story time. And we're going to begin tonight's story time. And I know there will be some of can you top this as each day goes by, but we're going to begin tonight's story time with getting an update from Phyllis, who intrigued us so well with her story from last week. And so Phyllis, what's the update on yours? Did anything happen?
Nothing has happened other than, my student starting to dress more and more like a boy. She's starting to hang with the boys. She's starting to sit with the boys. I don't know. I don't know what to, I try to run from it.
Well,
it's not a whole lot we can do because the parents condone everything. They've even sent dojo messages for us to address her as such. So I'm not.
well, the good news is that we probably will have more stories with this and as we proceed and this is a part of what this class is about with administration and following the law and understanding what we have to do. And it's frustrating. And you're right. If the parents are going to say, this is what we want, we're kind of hamstrung a little bit. but it was an interesting story you told for sure.
Well, I have something else, and it's really not my story to tell. It's probably more Mary's story to tell. But I have a question for Dr. Lamb. I want to just investigate how much time I would get for maybe hitting a student. TikTok has something going around, it's slap a teacher challenge. And, I was telling them that, I think I look pretty good in orange. The only thing that scares me is becoming somebody's girlfriend if I go to prison. So, Shaniqua's girlfriend or Bertha's girlfriend. So I just want to investigate. Dr. Lamb, can you give me some idea? I'm trying to go that insanity plea way, but I'm not sure that I got to have another plan, Mary said, a plan B, because Dorothy Dix is closed. So I got to have a
I really wish you hadn't addressed Dr. Lamb with that one.
I'll be brief. You'll get 24 months. You get out in 18 with good behavior.
Oh, but you didn't say anything about becoming Shaniqua's or Bertha's girlfriend.
Well, I
That's why
said
I'm
with good
glad. I
behavior.
wish you hadn't asked him.
With good behavior, you get out in 18, but that means you can't be fighting. You'll have to be somebody's girlfriend. So.
Oh man.
So it's a.
Well, I need somebody to investigate medical facilities, mental facilities for me, since Dorothy Dix is closed.
You can always go to Broughton and Morganton, the Western capital.
I will look into that. Hey, Phyllis, I think there's one in Greenville. It's called Marshall Pickens. So
okay,
that's an option because I told you Bull Street's closed. So
that's right, in Columbia.
You can't go there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Marshall Pickens in Spartanburg. In Greenville's supposed to be pretty good.
See, and Dr. Lamb saying Broughton, we've got a high school here in Raleigh, Broughton High School.
Needham
So,
Broughton, yeah.
Make that the connection.
Yeah. No, Morganton is the Western capital, seriously. And so they have the North Carolina School for the Deaf. They have the Maynard Iverson Center, which was called the Western North Carolina Center when I worked in that county for 5 years for mentally handicapped adults. They have Broughton Hospital for the mentally insane and the criminally insane. There, School for the Deaf, have all those. They have the only federal housing outside of Raleigh there that was built back in the 70s. It's kind of a unique place. The bad part about Broughton is sometimes the traffic's bad on that side of town. You have to cut through the backside of their campus. If there is such a thing as bad traffic in Morganton. And it's the most heartbreaking thing you've ever seen. This nice primary school playground, fenced in all the way over the top with razor wire. That's where they house the young folks under 14 who have committed murder. And they have a little school for them. And they have 8 to 14 at any one time, kids who have killed another child or killed an adult who go to school there. It's really, really sad place. So you definitely would not want to go there.
All right. Anybody else have a story?
I have a question. So our district has been getting a lot of threats lately, and I think it's a challenge or something. But we didn't even get notified. I guess what's the protocol for administration informing staff? Because they sent a Connect Ed to our parents today about a threat last week, and they still haven't even informed the staff.
Okay, so each district develops their own policy in terms of staff notification. Generally, and I don't agree with this, generally the most policies are they won't inform staff until the next official faculty meeting, which I think is not a good policy, but a lot of districts have adopted that, unfortunately. And so for that reason, a lot of teachers subscribe to the Connect Ed messages so they'll really know what's going on. But that's generally the policy, is that we don't put out any additional information other at the official faculty meeting. Not good though.
So and I can only speak from my experience. There was not a policy that I am aware of in Wilkes County where I was superintendent that I think that we have talked in here about communication lines being so vitally important. The truth is that teachers can be instrumental in calming so many things. And you know, if the threat comes at 5 o'clock and people are already gone, then I guess, you know, it may be a little bit different, but I'm just not aware that principals with whom I worked, and again, I was not in a metropolitan school district, but I'm just not aware of any occasion where there wasn't, you know, a communication that made them aware of potential threats or potential discomfort. But I do would agree with Dale 100%. I don't know of any policy where it says that you have to notify this group or this group. It's just protocols that good principals take. And that's the best way I can say it. And if or Rebecca, who asked that? Was that Rebecca or Ann?
That was Rebecca.
Rebecca, sorry. I think that I mean, I just think that's being a good administrator, and that makes yours look bad. I'm sorry, but I think that that's really, really important. And you know, a lot of times you don't want to get into a kind of the boy who cried wolf syndrome of having an emergency faculty meeting all the time, because, you know, there's just so much going on and you're at a very large school. But, you know, there's just times where you just bring everybody together and say, look, this is what we're battling. We're going to have extra security here. We're going to blah, blah, blah. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I need you to be out in the halls. I need you to monitor, blah, blah, blah. Those kinds of things. And there's kind of a unifying piece to that as well, that we're going to take care of things here. We're going to take care of each other. And so I can't defend your not knowing in any way. And I don't think Dale was either. He's just telling you what the policy is. So.
Well, now understand that in August of 2010, I piloted the first of the revision Mel courses across 150 on Perth Road there at Lakeshore. We used that facility that was close to my home, and I piloted that program. I was still in the central office at CMS, and so they set me up a place near home there, so I could start this revision to Mels program. And I had a number of interns there at Lake Norman High School. And I can tell you that there was a major drug bust and drug issue there at the time, and they never even shared that with the faculty. So that place has a history of, you know, don't see anything, don't say anything. That's not new.
Well,
there's a lot of political pressure because of the clientele there.
yeah. And on Friday, we actually released at 10:55, but like we were interrupted in class to say, read your email. And while all the teachers were waiting for the email, they announced that the students were leaving because of a skunk. And we didn't even get notified until the email was sent out after the announcements were going.
Yeah, I saw that in the local newspaper over the weekend, and I thought, I don't know that I would have believed that. I suspect it was not a skunk.
Oh no, it was a skunk. It was a
skunk. You just, but see, that's what I mean. They're just not, they've never been believable there. I mean, I remember one of the principals that got relieved there was supposedly over a $50 check, you know. If you believe that, I've got some lakefront property in Arizona I want to sell you. I know what he really did, and it had nothing to do with a $50 check. And so that's just the kind of place it is. The equivalent in CMS now would be Ardrey Kell, and before them it would have been Providence. You know, Providence was on the national news. They were live from Providence with a real bomb in the bathroom, never even made the report. I mean, that's just kind of place that when you have those elite parents, it comes that way. I told the principal at Old Providence one time that I was going to have, you know, that she was going to have to start reporting what was going on campus. She said these people would fry me if I told them what was really happening, and retired rather than do that. So that's the kind of place you are. And so, as Steve said, with no policy to force them, they'll put it on the agenda at the faculty meeting, you know, as a consent agenda item that doesn't even have to be brought up, and just move along. That's all you'll ever get there. That worries me. It scares me to work in I'd a lot rather be in a rougher place that told me the truth of the straight of things than a place like that. Because a lot of times those are the kind of places where bad things really do happen. Because, you know, a lot of poor kids don't have access to things like drugs and weapons, but rich kids tend to do that. And so that would kind of, that would give me pause, knowing the history of that place.
So I think it goes back to when you folks get your own school, just remember the disappointments you feel when you're not communicated with, and do it differently.
Yeah,
And
nobody wants to be a mushroom.
I think that's the best part of this. And Dale and I keep talking about all the tools you have, if you choose to go into administration, that will help you be successful. And then remember too, the things that have disappointed you, and make sure that you turn those things around. There's certainly no, unless you're superintendent or somebody says, now you can't tell anybody this, but even if that happens, if it's arguable that, you know, everybody needs to know, then I think you probably can convince it. I'll tell you what, sweeping things under the rug rarely works. That rug gets lifted.
Can I ask a question on that note? What is the parent's perspective, do you think, in that scenario? Is it that they don't want negative behaviors solicited that are going on at their school? Or are they playing the naive card? Or are they saying, oh, kids will be kids, let's not make a big deal out of it? Like, I don't really understand the parent's perspective. Like, I understand why the principal said, oh, you know, they would fry me if I let all this get out. But do the parents really know what's going on? They just don't want it to be publicized.
They don't want to know. That's the whole issue.
Okay.
They're all
So it's
gifted.
kids will
You
be
don't believe
kids.
it, just ask their mamas.
Okay.
And when you get those elite schools, I mean, it's privilege. It's green privilege, money. It's privilege. You know, when it's all according to who does it. What was the case that made the national news recently? The dichotomy of how two different people got treated in the legal system that did the same thing, and one of them ended up in prison, and the other never even had to post bail. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. These folks, it's the buying. You know, if we were all Catholics, it'd be the buying of the indulgences. They expect privilege. They expect you to operate as if it were a private school, and that they're paying for the privilege, and they expect the benefit of the doubt. And they don't want to know. They you know, everything is not nearly as bad. It's kind of like, you know, what's the definition of a mild heart attack? Well, that's when somebody else has one. You know, when you have one, they're all serious. It's that exact same metaphor. At these places, if it's somebody else's kids, they're hooligans. You shoot them, take them out back. But if it's their children, kids will be kids. You know, I don't believe you anyway. You're overblowing this. I don't believe my kid did that. I think you're just singling my child out. I lump it all under the category of privilege. You know, and that's one of the reasons I support private schools and charter schools is if you want privilege, if you want the indulgences, then there are places for those. But public school ought to be on the up and up. We ought to be legitimate. If you want to buy privilege for your child, if you want them to have the Friday Night Lights experience and be able to play football, than send them to a private or a or a charter school. You know, the kids in the community where my primary residence is, most of those kids are, you know, they're small, but they are slow. They're not, you know, there's a few athletes, but they all want that Friday night lights experience to wear the leather jacket and their Schimmel shirts or their jerseys on Fridays and all that. Well, most of them couldn't play dead because, you know, the high school, the public high school in our community is 4 AA, and they're monsters. I mean, they're men, and the kids in our neighborhood can't play. I mean, you know, that they couldn't even carry water for that bunch. And so they pay to go to privates or go to charters in order to have that experience. That's what they're for. But don't expect us to compromise our principles and who we are in public school just to facilitate you and your child. And that's, and as Steve said, when you start sweeping things under the rug gets so high, sometimes you fall off and break your arm. I was in a conversation this morning, as a matter of fact, about it's always the cover up. It's always the hiding. It's that you go through. That's what gets you. That's where the personal tort liability that we're going to talk about second half kicks in, where you don't have, and the district doesn't know your name. They throw you under the bus, and the legal backlash comes to you for hiding or not following the policy. When you know that if you told this, people in central office would be mad, but you know, nobody can give you permission to break the law. You got to do the reporting. You got to do what you got to do. And
I also just think that we don't really even need to do case study number 15 because I think we just covered it.
Mm-hmm. We did.
That was pretty cool how you did that, Ann.
You slid that right in there, didn't you?
And so you will know, I've circled what we're going to do, and 15 is not circled.
So we did it.
So I was pressing. I knew that we were going to have this conversation. So actually, I knew we weren't going to have time to do them all. So, but you're right. That is part of it. All right. Others? Anybody? All right. Let's switch gears. It's 6:24. So my question to you, I want to cover one thing because you're turning in your APSLs and your tasks, and some of you are getting feedback, and some of you are well, all of you get feedback, but those who turn it in, some of you are not so happy with my feedback. So here's my question to everybody, and somebody answer it. Because APSL is an acronym, what does APSL stand for? Anybody know? If you do, you really get a star, because I wouldn't have known it if I were you. APSL stands for Analysis and Action Plan of Student Learning. Now, I say that because a lot of us are doing an action plan for how to form and successfully implement a PLC. That's not what an APSL is. An APSL is how do we enhance student learning? What is the problem we're looking at with student learning, and what research-based strategies are we going to do to fix it? So I'm saying all that to make sure that as you get to task 4, that you discuss strategies to enhance whatever it is that is a focus for student achievement in your particular interest. So in task 2, you identified the need for a student need, or an achievement need, and now you're just carrying it on. Those of you who did an action plan that addressed PLCs, don't erase it necessarily. It's fine to leave that, just add to it so that you cover what strategies you're going to put into place to enhance student learning in whatever endeavor you're going to focus on. So I just wanted to point that out. And you know, again, PLCs were the first task because you're forming them as a group to help identify the need and develop the strategies to address the need. And this is all a part of what you did in EDCI as well, as you were studying PLCs and other means to, for lack of a better term, do the capacity building of adults to deliver to the students and help them address their needs. So that's what an APSO is. So if you, a couple of you have successfully navigated task 4 and task 5, it'll surprise all of you to know that Mary's through, and she has successfully navigated that. Let me also point out that once you finish task 5, then the next step is to put it all together in one document, submit it to Blackboard, and you also submit to task stream. And we've got to do the task stream piece as well. So, and knowing all of you, as we have gotten and blessed to do, you all have task stream accounts. So you all know how to do that, and you can submit it to task stream as well. That is the piece that Dale will do with the APSL in certifying essentially that you have completed and successfully completed the APSL. So I wanted to point that out. Does anybody have a question on it? You can see that I'm not, those of you who've gotten it assessed by me, I'm not being picky. All of you know how to write, and all of you write beautifully, and it flows beautifully. I just want to make sure you do the student learning part instead of the PLC part. Okay.
Let me quickly follow up. Please remember, in North and South Carolina, due to federal legislation that goes along with No Child Left Behind, every principal every year has to develop a local plan, an instructional piece. It can't be volunteers or somebody from the bank reading to students, but you have to put a program, treatment, or fix in to close the gap from a subgroup of your students every year. It's called closing the gap. And that's what the APTEL mirrors. And that's why it's so vitally important that your action plan be about student learning and about, we've identified through our data dive. We formed our PLC, we set our norms, our values, and then we looked at our standardized test scores and we identified our most pressing need. We did our research, then we did our annotated bibliography, and then we wrote a plan as to what we were going to do instructionally to close the gap of this subgroup between this subgroup and our overall school score on that measure. That's going to be required of you every year as a principal, and this is exactly the way that you have to do it. That's why we teach you this process. This is going to be an every year thing that you're in the principal's office. You're going to have to do a closing the gap instructional, a local initiative at your school. You can't just piggyback onto something your district is doing. You have to do something at your school. That's a local initiative every year for closing the gap. Can anyone see that plan? It's actually written into your school improvement plan. So the answer is yes. It is the instructional piece of your school improvement plan.
Or at least we hope it is.
Yeah, at least we hope it is. And those are publicly available, by the way, by law.
All right. So thank you for indulging me on that. So now we're 30 minutes into class. You will get out at 8 o'clock. Do not worry about that. We're going to do as many case studies as we get done, period. And at 8 o'clock, we're stopping. All right. So let's begin with group 1. That is Rebecca and Stacy and Leah. And you are going to share with us case number 12. No? Is that right? Yeah.
I was looking everywhere to try to unmute myself. I'm sorry. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Case 12 was titled 90% of success is showing up. And let me move y'all so I can see what I typed. Okay. There was a 4th grader named Mary who was performing at a 1st grade level. And everybody felt like it was largely because of her attendance issues. According to her teacher, she was not a discipline issue. She always put forth satisfactory effort. And when she was present, you know, or whatever, she followed directions well and tried. Barbara, the teacher, informs the principal, Helen, of the excessive absences, and attempts to contact Mary's mother were unsuccessful. Mary's mother did have to come in monthly to get a form signed for her welfare benefits or whatever. So Helen, who is the principal, tries to talk to her then, but to no resolve. Then Helen gets the bright idea to threaten her that if she doesn't sign the form, she's not gonna sign the form if Mary doesn't come to school regularly. And that ended up getting her a call from a social worker who was assigned to the case. She ended up having to sign the form. And then subsequently, the little girl was withdrawn from school. The questions that the book said were, what could the legislature or court system do to support the school in a case like this? What other strong actions could the principal have taken? And what programs or meetings could have been established to reach out to Mary's mother? And I'm not sure exactly which one of the girls took the rest of this one, but I'll defer to their judgment. Just tell me whenever you want me to click a slide.
Okay, I have this one. So thinking about this, it's sort of, I don't know, it made me upset because you don't know what's going on at home. You don't know if the welfare is helping support food or whatnot. So I felt like that was a necessity, and for the principal to threaten to not sign it. I do agree that there's some disconnect between the court system and students attending and parents trying to get the kids to school. But I think that there should have been an attempt for a meeting with the counselor, the principal, mom, and the teacher to try to figure something out, with maybe picking up work when she comes to sign, or talk about the importance of attending school and where her daughter is lacking and how they can make a plan to move her up to grade level. I don't know, I think this was 4th grade, correct? I don't know if they have something like MTSS in elementary school, but maybe assign her an MTS mentor if that's an option. I know we have it in high school. And I know with MTSS, the mentor at my school would make sure that the students attended school. And if not, they worked it out where there was a resource to pick them up from school, whether it was a bus driver, whether they went with an administrator to go pick them up. I also thought about, let's say meetings happen, whatnot, and the child's still not attending, they can do a wellness check with the SRO and see what's really going on in the house. I know my nurse did that once when COVID hit right before, to make sure vaccinations and, you know, why students weren't attending. So maybe something like that. And then lastly, bring the caseworker in and maybe the school psychologist.
So what is the feeling about, I mean, so a lot of you hear this administratively all the time. You know, I want to punish the parent because they're not encouraging the student to do blah blah blah. And I mean, let's go back to, I mean, I agree that MTSS can come into play. This is a child who is way behind already. Is is there a way to motivate this parent? I mean, are we just, I mean, are there some that you're just not going to win? At what point do we say, we'll just do what we can, but this child's got to eat, so I need to sign this form?
My whole question when I was reading this thing was, when did it become our responsibility as teachers to tell parents how to do their job? When did that disconnect happen? Because I mean, nobody ever called my mom and told her, you know, how to be my mother, or that I needed to do these things. But it seems like more and more, and I guess I'm older than a lot of people in the group, but it seems like more and more we're put upon with that. And I don't mean that to be negative. You know, there's been more than one student that I wanted to bring to our house and let them live with us, because, you know, you get to a point where you just know it's not happening for them at home. But I mean, where do we draw the line? What, you know, what's the protocol for, you know, telling parents how to raise their children? Plus, you know, if they're not doing their job, you know, can't the Department of Social Services do something? I'm not qualified to make that kind of judgment. I was just curious.
Okay, so the answers to all your questions are in North Carolina General Statute 115C 378, which is the compulsory attendance law in North Carolina. There is an accompanying title. It's the same in South Carolina, by the way, that says children between the age of 6 and 16 have to attend school. And the social worker is not the one that's not supposed to be putting pressure on the principal to sign the attendance. That document that parent brings every month, that's to say that my child is attending school so they can continue to get benefits for women and indigent children, WIC. That's what that is. And so, but once that student has missed 10 school days, principal's not supposed to sign that form. They're supposed to report that to both the social worker and the district attorney's office. And so that's what you're legally required to do. You can't be, don't you be signing that form if that kid's not coming to school. It was a heartbreaking case, but something like that happened in the little girl that they eventually found dead after the foster parents had her and claimed that she'd moved with relatives. That's the kind of thing you get into signing the form when a kid's not showing up. Pardon me for not remembering that child's name, because every time I think of it, I want to cry. She was a little girl that had one leg. Oh, it was a heartbreaking story. But again, they were signing off on her benefits and she wasn't coming to school. And the step parents or the foster parents had murdered her and buried her in a rural area. And this went on for a long period of time. And so the law is very clear. At 10 days, you stop signing the form, you report both to the social worker and to the district attorney. And parents can be brought in court and are quite frequently for not complying and having their kids in school. This is not really an educational issue. This is a straight law case here, folks.
So Elizabeth asked the question, is there such a thing as an attendance officer anymore?
Yes.
Not in the or the attendance officer, and they are usually they're aligned with the sheriff's department or the law enforcement agency. Is that not correct, Dale?
That is correct.
So I think that as Dale portrays this, the social worker is going to be involved because you are trying to nurture this thing to a remedy without making it a legal case. But the schools, you will get an egg on your face as a school-based administrator if you are signing off that this child has been in school. And So this one is you know, it tugs on your heart because you're sitting there as an administrator saying, if I don't sign this, and the mom's not going to get the money, and then she's not going to, you know, she's going to be even more strapped to be able to get groceries, and then blah, 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 blah. And the truth of the matter is the only fix is the legal remedy. And by the way, we're going to see that time and again. And I know that in 603, when Dale starts his part, he's just going to keep reminding us, follow the law, do what you know to do legally, and you're going to be fine. And that's not always fun, but it's what we are sworn to do. And so, yeah, this case is, this is the head versus the heart case, I guess, but most of the time, we as administrators, we as parents, we better use our heads, or we're going to be in for some real disappointment down the road.
I think a couple of you've hit upon, before they get to the 10 is the time that you try some, you know, some interventions before you get to the 10. But at 10, it's out of your hands, folks. And I know it may not be the moral thing to do, but this is one of those cases. Remember, we're a nation of laws, not morals, unfortunately. And this is one of those that if you've been signing off, I mean, you have to pay that money back. That's the least, but that'll be the least of your worries. You've committed a fraud, and you'll lose your job and your house, might lose your freedom for a little while. Phil's talking about how long she might have to wear that orange jumpsuit. Well, this is one of those cases you may have to wear one if you perpetrate a fraud, especially that's federal money. The feds tend to frown upon you fraudulently taking money or aiding people in fraudulently taking money. They don't like that. Yeah, that's right. Elizabeth said law first, ethics second. I'm afraid so. Again, it's about not losing your house. I mean, you know, you're not going to win any popularity contest, but the one you want to win is in court. I'm not telling you you're not going to get sued. Our job here is so you don't lose, because you'll probably have to go to court over the course of your career if you're an administrator for very long. You just don't want to lose.
All right, thank you very much. That's first case covered. We did that relatively quickly, so everybody's really happy about that as we march toward the 8 o'clock hour. So the next case, we're going to go back in the vault of last week, and I want group 2, if you can find it, if you can't tell me, to do case 20, which was on yours for last week. And so we're going to, group 2 will do case 20 and 27 tonight. And but we're going to start with case 20, and looks like it's up for Mary.
Phyllis, was that you, or is that?
Phyllis, if you're talking, you're muted.
Yes, I'm talking. Thank you very much. I'm trying to move everybody out of the way so I can see. Yes, I had case 20. And this case had to do, and it kind of goes with some of the other ones that we looked at on last week. This principal, Mary Barrington, this principal is a Clarkdale school. The school budget was in place. There was no incidents of poor behavior on the bus. The students' attendance was high with, you know, few latecomers or tardies. And there, as a result of this, there were fewer disruptions in the classrooms as far as the routines and instructions go. And I think it also said, as it says here, that only 2 teachers were absent out of all 49, and there are great substitutes in place. We know they weren't in COVID because there are no substitutes available. But anyway, everything was perfect, and Mary saw these as signs of progress, trying to turn this struggling school into a more orderly and safe school. That seemed to be her focus. She was like organizing and supervising programs like graduations, student assembly celebrations, holiday activities. And then all of a sudden she received a phone call from her district superintendent and said, you know, these are great goals, Mary. However, they have little or nothing to do. They don't show your plans for improving your instructional leadership, because her focus seems to be on the management stuff. Okay, click. Okay, and her current goals tells about her plan to improve the school community relations, computerize the school budget, revise the arrival and dismissal procedures, and to improve discipline. Mary is told that, you know, her new role as a principal is moving away from all this management stuff and more towards a learning focused school culture. And part of what they said, some of these things that Mary is doing, the principal is doing, she can tap into the talents of her teachers or other staff members and empower them to take more roles, and where her focus can be on visiting the classrooms and explaining her expectations as far as the staff, as far as the students, student achievement, student progress, and the importance of teaching and learning as it relates to the curriculum. So if she's going to be successful, in my opinion, I agree with what they suggested, that she learns to delegate those duties and prioritize, you know, some of those celebratory kind of things, so that she can be more attentive to what's going on in the classrooms and more attentive to her student achievement and the progress of students, instead of, you know, not that these other things aren't important, but delegating duties would be more important to her and taking some of the pressure off of her to help improve her school and to improve her leadership as a principal. That's just my opinion. I'm not sure how anybody else feels about this, but a lot of these things, my principal has delegated his instructional leadership team and some other cadres to perform. So it takes some of the pressure off of him, and he can be more attentive to student achievement and progress.
All right. One of the things that we read about in the book, The Principal, and one of the things that's discussed next semester as well is or next course, 603, is this difference between instructional leadership and managerial leadership. Is there, how much of a principal's day ought to be dedicated to instructional leadership?
I think the majority of his day should, or her day should be devoted to that.
All right, so is anybody at a smaller elementary school that does not have an assistant principal? Leah, how do things get done there? Who does the managerial task?
So our principal, this is his third year at our school, and it's his third year as a principal. So he's really kind of been put through the gauntlet between being a new principal at a school he's never worked with before, and during the pandemic and shutdowns and all of that. So there's, in my very personal opinion, there's very little instructional leadership happening from him. He's very much a managerial leader right now because he's so busy putting out fires to kind of keep everything going. The instructional leadership comes from some of our teacher leaders who have been here for several years. So.
Can that work?
Not for long. we got to have somebody steering the ship, right? And they have to know where it's going, and they have to communicate that path.
Right.
Otherwise we're all just kind of like, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
I agree with Leah in what she said. Fortunately, now my principal realizes that, and he has created what he calls cadres, and he has assigned them some of this managerial, most of the managerial stuff, some things he wants to hang on to, but he has become more of an instructional leader now. Coming from high school is very different when you come to elementary school. And so some of these things he had to learn, but he has finally understood that you're going to have to delegate and empower your teachers and empower your staff to become the leaders that they can be. So, we're pretty happy about that.
Is it easier to delegate, as you say here, Phyllis, is it easier to delegate instructional leadership or managerial leadership?
I think it's easier for the managerial leadership if we're basing it on what is considered managerial. I think it's easier to empower teachers to do that. I have been placed on the instructional leadership team, and it's harder being an instructional leader.
Yeah.
You have to have those tough conversations. You have to, forget about we hang out on the weekends, and, you have to be that leader, and that's tough, when you have to take leadership over some of your peers. It's tough.
Is discipline managerial or instruction?
I think it's probably a little both, depending on the offense. But I think if it starts in the classroom and you have some programs in place to help curtail discipline, then I think it won't get to necessarily to that instructional leader.
Is meeting with the parent who's angry with things going on, angry at the teacher for probably not a good reason, but angry at the teacher, is that instructional or is that managerial?
For me, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt, Phyllis. I think it's managerial. I think all discipline's managerial, but I think it can impact instruction if it's not handled correctly. But I think you have a policy, you did this, and you get this. That's cut and dry managerial. But as far as instruction goes, if the discipline is impeding the teacher's ability to teach, then yeah, you kind of crossed over. But I don't know. I could be totally wrong.
I don't know. As a PBIS school, we encourage our teachers to handle discipline, as far as parents go or parent concerns, try to handle it first. But, if that doesn't work and there's no satisfaction, or you can't come to some kind of agreement or compromise, then we take it to the instructional leader.
Does anybody in here work for a principal that you consider a true instructional leader? That you are happy, I mean, in the definition of it, you would say this is an instructional leader. That's Leah.
So the principal before my current one was a true instructional leader. He was the first principal that I ever worked with where I honestly felt like EVOS and my evaluation was not jumping through hoops. It was truly used as a tool for growth and improvement. And that's just one example. But yeah, I've worked with one in my career. One.
As I said, I think mine is headed in that direction, and I'm happy about it. But when he first got there, I think there was a level of trust that he didn't have with us. He didn't really know us. And so he was going to try to handle everything himself instead of delegating or trying to empower us as leaders. And that made it quite difficult for him. And that kind of goes into case 27 that we looked at, where, the burnout and the stress can come in and, you know, nothing really gets accomplished. So I'm happy to say that he's moving in that direction.
Yeah, don't give that one away because we're gonna do that one tonight too.
Yeah.
And do you have your hand up?
No, I was agreeing that I have also worked with one principal who was an excellent instructional leader. But I've worked with 4 or 5 principals. The rest were managerial.
Yeah. Has anybody worked with a managerial leader that you would term as a managerial leader that it was a really good experience for you as a teacher?
So I can say that I was really, really blessed, I think, because when I moved to the school that I'm at now, the principal was a true instructional leader. He grew me more than any teacher I've ever taught with. And I've helped train several teachers who've worked with me in another grade, but like he was the one that pushed me. He pushed lesson plans. He corrected things. He asked me why all the time. Why are you doing this? How does this link back to the standards? What is this doing for the kids? And I've really never had teachers do that with me. The assistant principal that worked with him was a true managerial leader. So he kind of, everything was kind of delegated down to him and he kind of ran that part of it. Not that he wasn't involved in the instructional leadership, but they had this like tag team, beautiful thing happen. And now they're both at the high school. So I'm a little jealous, but 9th grade's not at the high school and I'm not certified to teach there. So.
Yeah, and one of the challenges for the assistant principal who was handling the managerial thing is to trade off and become the instructional leader down the road, because we get locked into these stereotypes. It's kind of like the, you know, the actor who was, or actress that was in like Gilligan's Island, you know, and all those actors were damned for life because they were stereotyped, right? Or Beverly Hillbillies, all these old shows that we watch. Very few, or not very few, but some of them are locked in. They're always going to be viewed as that. So it is incumbent upon all of us to be able to wear both hats and to figure out how we can achieve both. And I think that the instructional leader who is only interested in being the instructional leader will fail as a leader. And the managerial leader who's only interested in being a managerial leader will fail as a leader. Now, Dale and I have said this before. 30 years ago, 25 years ago, you could be a very successful principal as a managerial leader. And I mean, a very successful leader. And things have changed. And I think a lot of that is due to our need in administration to build capacity for teachers to be able to have all the tools they need to be successful. And that to me weaves managerial and instructional leadership together. So this was a good one. And I agree, Phyllis, that 27 gets into all that's on the plate of an administrator and how that's got to be kind of figured out and not to send somebody over the edge with it. But right now, we all are cognizant that the administration in your building is spending most of their day contact tracing, and they're not able to instructionally lead or managerial lead. They're just trying to survive, just like you are, and it's tragic that we've reached that point.
Can
You
I,
got anything on this one?
yeah, I want to shout out Phyllis. I love the notion that Phyllis said, you've got to be able to have critical conversations with teachers, and you can't expect other teachers to do that. And Leah was talking about, you know, that had a principal that was trying to grow her, and Andy. I mean, you've got to be able to have critical conversations with people about their instruction. again, it goes back to the notion, if you can't let good people go simply because they can't teach, you can't leave. Because what is our core competency? Again, I'll ask Mary, not too far from where Mary lives in Fuquay, over near Garner, there's a road over there, Jones Sausage Road, and there's a sausage plant called Jones Sausage. You know what they do at Jones Sausage? They make sausage. You know what we do in school? We teach kids. That has to be our core competency, period. We're not running a penal institution where we get points if they behave well. We want them to behave well, but we need for them to learn. And if we want them to learn more, we have to teach them more. Just making them behave won't make them learn a damn thing. That's just the way it works. And so, but Steve's right. Your issue is going to be during the AP time when you have to be that technician level person, that managerial. That's where you'll struggle. But then you will shine when you get to be principal and you get to be instructional. But you can't exclude one or the other. But you have the component, that instructional piece, that will make you very successful as a principal. As long as you can struggle through learning the management piece as an AP, you'll do great. But remember, it's all about instruction, folks. That's got to be your focus. You know, as somebody who did turnaround schools, you know, I knew we had 1 year to get all the blood up out of the hallway, so it didn't look like a slaughterhouse, and we could let civilians come in and actually watch what was going on. But I knew the second year we had to switch. We had to trade some of those security people and assistants for teaching positions, because again, we don't want to create a penal colony where we're just warehousing kids. We're trying to teach children, and that's always got to be your focus, always. So again, a shout out to Phyllis for we have to be able to have those critical conversations with teachers. It's all about teaching and learning.
So Stacy's got a really good question here. Not that all the questions aren't good, but as it's the one I'm looking at here, since I'm rarely put on my glasses and then I can't see what all y'all are writing. But I did put this on, and the question is, how much in an educational, the university educational program is, how much is spent on instructional leadership? Dale, I'm gonna let you answer it, but I'm gonna answer it before you do, and then you'll tell them the truth. I've watched the program that Dale has developed in MELS. If you look at the evidences, all 6 of them, 5 of them are instructional leadership as I define it. That's the evidences. The courses, there are 5 courses, 4 of them. You're going to take the one that is essentially managerial, which is 603. That's the next one. Now there is some special populations in there and those kind of things, but that also deals with the legal end. But to answer that question, Stacy, and it's a great one, I think we have transitioned, and Dale has made sure that it's transitioned at Gardner Webb, that instructional leadership is the core focus. If you go to EDLS, which is my program, I will tell you that up until 2 years ago, when we rewrote the program, we had 1 instructional leadership component. It was the last class we took. And now strategic leadership deals with instruction. Instructional leadership obviously deals with instruction. HR leadership deals with capacity building in professional development and adult learning theory. So 3 of them, half our program, even though it is what we call ed leadership, not the curriculum instruction doctorate, deals with instructional leadership from the central office level. So I do think we have transitioned to answer that. And I mean, both in MELS and EDLS, there has to be managerial components. And I mean, y'all know that. You're not saying there shouldn't be. I think we've put a greater focus on instruction. Dale, what did I not say?
That we're tied to those standards, but even no matter which standard it is, we try to view the standard through the instructional lens. I was talking with a colleague at Pembroke today in the MSA program down there. and they're struggling with the notion of the evidences because they are trying to transition from the old principal as manager to principal as instructional leader. And you will struggle with that until with portfolios and those things, and until you say we're just going to do it differently. We're going to make it reflect modern schooling, and that's what Steve's done. And that's what we've done is we've said, you know, it may not be popular, it may not be the way we did it. My first principalship was 34 years ago this past August. It's not how I started 34 years ago this past August, I'll just tell you. But it's how it ought to be done. You have to give up, this is the way I did it. That's the first thing. You have to give that up and know what the right thing to do is. Not what we do, but what we ought to be doing. And so that's what we've attempted to do. And so that's why our program feeds into Steve's now is they understand the evidence system, they understand instruction, and they go to that program in EDLS, and they're very successful. And it's easy for me to recruit for them because I know that it's an extension of what we do. We at one time were a little out of balance. We're no longer out of balance. We start you on that path to instructional enlightenment, and it continues all the way through. And we're very proud of our folks. 2 more got promoted this week. We've already had 2 promotions this week. We're very proud of those. One of them is the reigning principal of the year in Durham already. And she and her AP got promoted this week because all of our folks, and they came through the doctoral program with Steve and the master's program with me, one of them. And the deal is they understand it's all about instruction. That they've got it. And they do managerial. I know Jackie does. But they never lose that focus. That again, what do they do at Jones Sausage? They make sausage. What do we do in school? We teach kids. Period. Can't lose that focus.
Hey, Dr. Lamb, you do know that factory's closed, right?
Yeah. The last
Okay.
time I drove by there, it was Jesse James, and then it went under. But it's still Jones Sausage Road though. It goes out the backside of Garden.
Yeah, that explosion in 2009 that killed 4 people and they sold the land. It's now an Amazon factory. So yeah.
But Molly Dibble was one of your folks who preceded you in EDCI. Molly was over there at that little elementary school right past the sausage factory when she was mine. I taught
It won't be the last time y'all hear the analogy to Jones Sausage, I can tell you.
It's the only one I know.
Yeah, it'll come back up.
We just wanted
All
to make sure you knew that it wasn't there anymore.
Yeah, but Jones Sausage Road is still there. Every time I'm in that part of the world, I drive by to make sure.
I have a cohort in Goldsboro, so I go by it all the time. But I'm glad you told me it's closed. I won't go by there to get sausage. I didn't know it was closed. All right, we've lost control again. Case 39 is going to be done by our group 3, which is Jennifer, Elizabeth, and Heather.
Hey, Heather, can you screen share? I'll just put you on the spot like that. I forgot that I was 39. Okay, so case 39 is when pupil achievement goes south. So basically, the problem is Earl Rusnak, principal Liberty School, noticed a subtle drop of test scores, and it's specifically the minority lower socioeconomic background students. So he needed to come up with a plan. He made a nice PowerPoint and presented it at the staff meeting, and even presented the idea of revamping the school curriculum. The school improvement committee met several times, and I listed the series of quotes from the people in that committee. So the faculty rep said, "We'll surely get results if we focus on what the tests require." John Hawkins said, "We have good teachers here, but we can't get the results we want because the community and the parents don't give us the support we need." That one's all too familiar. Phyllis Grant said, our kids have so many emotional needs we must respond to before we even touch the academics. But some of our students do not even have breakfast before school. I wish the test would measure the dedication and the love we give to our students. The tests are no way to judge a school. And lastly, Frank Jessup said, everything runs in cycles, Earl. This too shall pass. Don't beat yourself up over this. We are doing the best we can with limited resources. We have heavy turnover of teachers every year, and it takes time to bring the new staff up to speed. And Frank was trying to make Earl feel a little bit better about this dilemma. So the questions were, how should Earl address the issues raised by the faculty rep? How should he deal with the comments expressed by the rest of the committee? And what are some possible factors that might explain poor achievement at Liberty School, and how can they address these factors? And I think, like, over the course of our Tuesday classes, this case study seemed like a no-brainer-ish, because I'm sure as teachers, we've all heard those comments about how, like, families don't support us and maybe we should just teach the test, and, well, we're doing the best we can, there's nothing else we can do. But the possible solution that the book gave us was Earl basically has to put his foot down as far as the new demands for accountability placed on schools, and just educate them about it. He needs to hire teachers who possess strong content knowledge. And that's, I guess, where the hiring process comes in, and weeding out your high quality teachers, which, as Dr. Lamb kindly reminded us, there are not that many out there. He needs to organize professional development. Oh, I guess I got tired typing up. I'm sorry, disregard the typos. But basically needs to organize professional development plans to focus on the curriculum, instruction, and best practice that are research-based, that improve teaching and learning. And then basically be open with the staff about the research on achievement gaps, that identifies things that are under the control of the school. So that reminded me of something my old principal used to say, was basically, how do we address these gaps within our students without focusing on what's out of our control? Like students coming in late or attendance issues, that's sometimes out of, like, the teacher's control. Things like lack of family support, we do as much as we can to try to get them into the school, but when the family doesn't help with, like, homework or whatever at home, then it's out of our control. So what can we do during the time that the students are in our classrooms that will help close that gap? And something that the case study touched on was the teachers' years of experience. So basically said the less experienced teachers are usually thrown into those high need schools, and they don't have teachers that have lots of experience or are strong in that instructional piece. So the principal has to take into consideration and try to hiring more teachers with more experience. That, at least that's how I understood it. And lastly, he needs to engage the faculty in a serious dialogue about the teacher's perception of student success, which basically means having high expectations for your students, despite whatever misconceptions you may have about them. And I think during our, like, EDCI courses, we touched on a lot of these things. I think that goes back to being, like, that instructional leader. That's all I got.
So based on the EDCI program that you just experienced, you folks ought to be feeling pretty good that you can make a difference in this case study. I kind of read this one, and I always try to guard against diverting into sports analogies. But I'm going to this time, and I hope you all will forgive me for it. I am a a graduate of Wake Forest, and and with that comes all the beatings I take in athletics as a fan. But we are competitive. We're not a top 10 team in anything other than soccer and golf. But I think I'm going to use the football analogy, because Wake Forest is not at the level of so many other schools in being able to attract students to play football at Wake Forest. So what Wake Forest does, we have a wonderful coach named Dave Clawson, and before him, we had a wonderful coach named Jim Grove. And if you look historically, we are typically 6-6, 7-5, sometimes 8-4. And that's good for Wake Forest. We're not going to compete with Clemson. We're sure not going to compete with Alabama. And they rank these high school athletes that come out as 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star. Wake Forest gets 2 stars and 3-star players. Clemson gets 5 stars, Alabama gets 5 stars, Chapel Hill gets 4 stars, NC State gets 4 stars and a couple of 3 stars. And so the only way Wake Forest can compete is to get these kids and develop them. And that's what Dave Clawson does. He gets these kids and he develops them into football players with the Wake Forest way, our offensive scheme, our defensive scheme. When I read this case, when I think about what you do as instructional leaders in your schools and what you would do as an instructional leader, as an administrator, that's what you would do. You're not going to get the 5-star teacher. You're not. The 5-star teacher is going to go where the money is. And the cynic in me would say that's how some of these schools that I just mentioned get their 5 stars, but I'm not. I'm going to say that you're going to get what is there for you to get. And you've got to take those people and make them into the kind of teacher you need in the culture of your school. That's what this is. And you've got to stop, as you said in your response here, this too shall pass comments, we haven't got a chance because our parents aren't real parents. You got to stop all of that. Here's what we're going to do when you're here, because again, going to the football analogy, Wake Forest may lose the rest of the games this year. I hope not, but they may. But Wake Forest cannot go into a football game or a football season and say, we can't compete with them because I'm a 3-star. We need to go into it saying, I've been developed into being a good football player. And our teachers, even more so, need to go into a school year saying, we're going to succeed because you have helped develop me into being a person who can deliver that instruction. And furthermore, principal, you have created a culture here that I know you're going to back me. And you are going to make sure that students do what they're supposed to do, and that you're going to protect me from parents. All of these things come together. That is what we do as principals. And if the good ones, the ones that you have acknowledged you have worked for over the years, the ones that you truly admire are the ones who create that. That's what this is about. It is about making sausage on Jones Sausage Road, because the administrator allows that to happen and develops the people, puts into place procedures that allows the teachers to be developed. Because many of you are in schools where you're not going to get the 5-star. I hope that makes sense, but it probably doesn't. But that's my sermon. It's what we do. And I want to go back to the question that I commented on with Stacy, because I was so glad she asked it. You know, what do our programs look like now? Our programs look like at MELS and EDLS that we create those atmospheres, that we can develop people to be better at what they do. That's why you folks are going to be stars, because Dale and I will try to put that into place, but you have that extra piece. You know strategies that can get people opportunities to be better. That's my sermon. Dale, what I miss on that one?
Not a thing. To extend the sports metaphor, only what counts in a ball game is what happens between the lines, and that's what we have to know at school is we can't factor in all these other things. Let me share my screen quickly to remind you of the 10 factors that affect the kid's score. 9 of them are out of our control. The only one we have control over is the teacher. And so these other things are outside the lines. We can't let them, we can't bring that to work every day. I can't worry about the race or their gender or their economics or any of those things. You don't always get the best teacher, but it's up to you to grow the ones you have. You start with EVOS, you figure out who works best with what kind of kids, but you grow those people, best practices. You work that professional growth model. But you never say, well, that's just a bad group. The old gag back in my day in elementary, when I was an elementary principal, this group must have ate a bunch of lead chips in the crib, lead paint chips, No, that's not acceptable. And again, that's where you folks have the leg up. You know the strategies. You know how to grow teachers. You know how to have those critical conversations. But we can't just say, that's just the rub of the green. The next group will be better. No, they won't be. The only thing that you can do as a school is improve your teachers, and that it's incumbent upon you to do that. You got to grow those 1 stars into those 5 stars. You're not going to get the best ones. They're not going to knock your door down. You just hope to get some. And it's up to you. That's exactly right, Andy. Their mama sent us the best ones they had. And it's up to us after that. Excuse me.
All right, let's move on. 7:24, we're doing fine. We're going to get as much done as we can. Next case is number 14 by group 1.
Okay, I'm figuring it out. All right. That's the principal's report card. Is that am I doing the right one?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Rose was the superintendent, demanded an increased performance, or is, wait a minute. Okay, so, oh yeah, that's right. Demanded increased performance from the student at Sal, and he was like super ethical principal guy. There was a $50,000 grant that was awarded to the school for a tutoring program, and it could house 30 students. Regina was the guidance counselor and wanted Sal to include children who have poor interpersonal skills and bad home situations. She argued we could feed them and keep them out of trouble. That was her argument. Mary, I never figured out what she did exactly, but she wanted Sal to think about only including those students who had the best chance of passing the test. In that case, the numbers would go up from the poor test scores, and then the pressure would be lifted from the superintendent. Florence was a teacher and wanted students who were LD and have behavior issues to be included. And these students were so far behind that they didn't feel like that tutoring would even help them. There we go. The questions that were asked were, to what extent should students' social emotional well-being play into Sal's decision in this case? How much consideration should Sal give to Florence's argument for equity? evaluate Mary's arguments on the basis of ethics and equity and the need to increase numbers of children passing the test. And if you were principal, how would you respond to Sal's dilemma? What action would you take? How practical is ethics as a general principle of decision-making? And what alternatives might be available in Sal's struggle to resolve the dilemma? And Leah did these questions, but she's got a sleeping baby with her right now. So I'm going to just read her slide, and then if you want to talk about it, we will. Absolutely include the SEL as a consideration. Look at the tiered MTSS process within the school. What are tier 1 students receiving? What would this program be considered tier 2 or tier 3? Identify students based on this and then. Ethics and equity must remain a cornerstone of school-based decision making. And the only thing I've got to say about that is law before ethics. And if it's somebody else's money, we better be doing what we're supposed to be doing with it. So that's my input. That wasn't on Leah's slide. So.
All right, this gets to be a bigger, to me, a bigger case than this. So you get this grant, and you're exactly right. If you write a grant and say and you will do this, then you better do this with the money. You can't get it based on saying you're going to do one thing and then take it and do something else with it. The question is, most times we're going to be writing a grant that may give us a little wiggle room. So now they've got this money, and now they're trying to decide how to spend it. And so in looking at this response, group 1, how would you spend it, and how would you make that determination?
I kind of, when I read this, I kind of liked, I know this is probably not the most ethical choice, but I kind of liked Mary's idea about getting the most bang for our buck and getting the kids that were right on the cusp of passing so that we could get the test numbers higher so that we get everybody off our backs. But then I thought to myself, that was really selfish of me to think that way. But you know, I don't know, if we alleviate the pressure, then are the other kids going to get happier teachers? I don't know. It just, that to me, that was what my first inclination was.
So your inclination would be to spend it on those kids that were right there on the borderline.
I think it said, hold on, I have to go back and look, but including those students who had the best chance of passing the test. I don't know.
So Mary Newton's glad that you're siding with somebody named Mary.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out what she does. I don't think it's saying, I'm assuming she's a teacher, but you know, I kind of, the Florence teaching the LD kids, and you know, they're so far behind, can we really even help them? I don't think that's a very good I don't know, a very good attitude to have about those kids, or you know, or not including those kids. And I do agree with Regina, the guidance counselor, that those kids who have emotional or interpersonal issues and home situations need to be fed and the whole 9 yards. But in my opinion, the grant was for tutoring to get the scores up, right? I mean, Rose, the superintendent, demanded the increased performance. And if that's what we're supposed to use the money for, it would make sense to me to put the money into tutoring those kids that are going to benefit from it, or they're going to benefit from it, and the school will benefit from higher numbers. I hope that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. Anybody else have a thought on this?
What about if we need to spend money on food, use the grant for the tutoring, but reach out to local businesses or the PTSA to provide either money for food or donations for snacks or something? So that way everyone can be involved.
I think you're onto something there, Rebecca, and I think you can certainly solicit from other entities. You know, some of us are in schools where there aren't a lot of places to go to solicit, and I think that you know, where the guidance counselor is coming is that we have a chance to make lives better, right? That we can give them, we can meet the level 1 needs on Maslow: food, shelter, and clothing, and that's what we should all be about, right? And Elizabeth, I just read what she did because I just put my glasses back on. She said, "Wouldn't it be good to know what the grant said?" So yes, Elizabeth, you hit it. First and foremost, you do what you applied for the grant, and so do what you say. If it was a nebulous grant, you got $50,000 and you had some flexibility, which I think is what the intent of this case was. But once we determine we're going to do what we said we would do in the grant, once that's out of the way, if we have flexibility, then how do we decide what we're going to do next? I like the thinking of Mary here, because everybody loves a winner. And you're going to hear it. This is going to be another one, maybe not as often as Jones sausage, but you're going to hear it often, that we are judged by our performance as a school. Whether we like it or not, that's how we're going to be judged. And if we can raise that level of proficiency and growth at our school, then the esteem given to our school, the esteem that our faculty feels about working at our school, the esteem that our community feels about their children coming to our school, all of these things are going to be enhanced, and then other things come. Have you ever noticed how people want to give money to things that are working? Seed money is okay, and many people want to give seed money to get things started on a good path, but they also love to give to things that are working. Everybody loves a winner. I think that the decision by this group to side with Mary, if that was the whole group that decided that, is probably the most beneficial. That if we can get our respect at a new level because of the number of students who have succeeded at our school, we will benefit all children in our school. That is, you know, that has been proven over and over and over again. So I like that one. Dale, what I leave out on this one?
Remember, as I told you, verse 9, if you're one of those people that doesn't believe scores matters, it's not the business for you. Scores matter. That's why we post them. That's why we have report cards. Quick history lesson: 1983, A Nation at Risk, National Report on Education Excellence, and Trouble Crusade. Diane Ravitch, professor at Columbia, identified that our schools were failing. We spent a number of years getting prepared for accountability, writing state curriculums, doing those things. We launched accountability in 1991 nationally. In 2001, No Child Left Behind. The reason why that companion to that came is because what we talked about openly during that first 10 years of accountability was forget the ones, just get the high twos and try to get growth. And we were literally throwing kids away. We just didn't care. If they were low, we just said that, you know, it's not worth the trouble. We only worked with the twos, the medium and high twos, to get them to proficiency at level 3. And so that's why No Child Left Behind was written. It's because 10 years we had just literally thrown kids away. And so that's the whole notion of why we love growth is that every child matters now. Can we grow every child? And so, to me, the right answer on this one is we take our lowest academic kids, as many as we can take up through every, and that's who we go with. We do the best for the kids. That's what grants are for. And again, it goes back to what was this written for? But again, I am vehemently opposed to throwing any kids away. Just as, I mean, why are we in the business? If we're willing to throw them away, why we bother? Let's just cheat and go on about our business. Let's make life comfortable for the adults that work in the building. But if we're really there for kids, then we can't just say let's just do the bubble kids, the kids that are near proficiency. We start with the lowest ones and we do the best we can and we try to grow them. That's the moral, the ethical thing. And so ethics do play a part in this. The legal piece is we do what the grant says we do. Otherwise, we have to pay it back with interest, by the way. And then after that, we do the right thing, which is work with the lowest kids. That's what we do. And that's why I love growth accountability so much better than comparative accountability. Again, comparative is about who you get. Growth's about what you do with who you get. And again, mama sent the best ones they had. And a lot of times, all the metaphors tonight, my last one is most of the time, kids that need love the most deserve it the least. We got to keep remembering that in the public school business.
All right, number 27, Phyllis, you promised it was coming.
Well, here it is, number 27. Thank you, Mary. Okay, let me move us out of the way. All right, case study 27. This title is Bernie Burning Out. Bernie loves his job as a principal at his school. He describes his leadership position as a calling, not just a job. He sees his job as an opportunity that challenges his own intellectual and physical stamina. Bernie seems destined for greatness as principal, so much so under his direction, the student achievement has soared. The teachers and faculty have won many professional accolades for their excellence in teaching. He's always looking for ways to increase parent involvement. And because of his passion, dedication, and hard work, he was named Principal of the Year. He enjoys the challenges of his job and its need for creativity, energy, administrative skills, sensitivity, healthy doses of passion. However, the pressure of his workload has begun to take its toll on him. Night meetings and weekend work have caused him to begin to neglect his family responsibilities. Other consequences of work-related stress began to manifest themselves. He began to make hasty decisions, collaborations and consultations with his faculty became less and less frequent. His relationship with parents and staff began to fray. He was less visible around the school. The professional journals he loved to read began to pile up. He was no longer practicing his self-care. He began taking days off. He would take work on family vacations. And so what does Bernie need to do? Is he burning out? I lost my train of thought. It's smelling so good in here. My guy is cooking. Bernie needs to learn to prioritize his work assignments and delegate his duties. Thank you, Mary. What I feel with Bernie, I don't think he is, I can't see anybody. Mary, will you stop sharing for me, please? Thank you. I think, and I'm not sure that Bernie is burning out yet, but I think if he doesn't find a balance and start, as I said with the last case study, if he doesn't start delegating duty, empowering his teachers to take on some of these tasks, these managerial type things, leadership things, then he is going to find himself burnout. because, you know, his wife is going to be demanding, you know, you're not spending time with the family, you're not doing this, you're not doing that with us, you know, and of course things are going to have start suffering if he doesn't find a balance, a work balance, you know. And this must be really old because it talked about a Palm Pilot and a BlackBerry. I don't know when the last time, you know, instead of having some of the late night meetings, you'll find a way to maybe use technology, you know, to share information about, you know, certain issues that are coming up, or something that could be put in an email, or, you know, maybe Zoom or something, using technology more. And, you know, I think he's not stressed out yet, but it's going to lead to that if he doesn't start to delegate some of the duties and take some of this pressure off of him. Although he loves it and he thrives on it, and he lives to be a principal, you know, and in front of what the case says, he's doing a good job at it. But when the demands start coming from home and you don't practice self-care, then you're going to have those burnout and stress issues. So that's what I took away from it.
All right. So with this one, I smiled with this one. I need to share the case study with one of my students, Jennifer, who is a principal in McDowell County, and her dissertation is going to be on self-care for principals, and it's essentially she is going to interview a group of principals for them to tell how they care for themselves in a stressful time. And that's this case study, isn't it? That we have to figure that out. And Jennifer's taking it from the principal standpoint because she is a principal, and she got interested in it. It was an interesting conversation because one of our phone calls where we were talking about potential things that she wanted to study, she was discussing you know, what was going on in her life and her school at that time, and you know, it just kind of evolved, and she kind of made a side note. She said, maybe that's what I want to study, and it just took off. And some of you have that experience with how you figured out what you were going to study, and it's going to be a fascinating study because everybody handles things in different ways, and it could just as easily be that you folks would have that same topic, right? How in the world do you folks balance going to school and working with these kids and all the pressures that go with that, and having to alter how you deliver instruction in all of these ways that have been thrown on you? And then, you know, two old men expect you to be ready to come to class on Tuesday night, and you have that piece with it. And then you know, all of these cameras are on, and some of you have your children that are rightly wanting for mom to be accessible with that, and you just put all of these pieces together, or Stacy's dog, and you put all of these pieces together, and it's hard to figure out how you're going to do this. So what do we learn from this? What does this case study tell us? How is he going to make it?
I think he's just going to have to find a balance, you know, to set up, you know, I don't know, calendar. I mean, time management. You know, I think he's going to have to do that. I remember when I was my first year teaching, I was a kindergarten teacher. I know I come off as a kindergarten teacher, but I was a kindergarten teacher and I loved it. And my principal have in the upper grades, and I said, well, how much upper? And she moved me to second grade. Then 10 days later, I was in third grade. And then the next year I was in fourth grade. Then the next year I was in fifth grade. and the stress of all of that, I had to do a presentation for the staff that afternoon, and I was feeling bad, and I did the presentation, and I said if I could just get back to my seat, I would be okay. But I never made it back to my seat. I woke up to them saying, Miss Marshall, you okay? Are you okay? They called 911. They took me to the doctor. They said I had a heart attack. I didn't have a heart attack, but they sent me to the cardiologist, who did the stress test and everything. And they discovered that it was the stress, and they wrote me out of work for a week. So you have to take care of yourself as a teacher. You have to take care of yourself as a principal. You have to find a balance for your life, in your life. As teachers, our job never stops. We go to school, we doing school work. We come home, we're doing school work. On the weekends, we're doing school work, just to get these kids where we want them to be and where they need to be. But you have to have a balance, and I had to learn self-care, because if not, it was going to kill me. The stress and being overwhelmed and trying to help these kids move and grow. So you have to find that balance. You have to take time for you. So I make it a habit every day to, at least when I come home from work, I don't open anything. I don't look at anything, until I have maybe walked or done something that I enjoy to do. And then later on, I'll pick something up. But we have to find that balance, and we have to do that self-care. It's imperative. And many teachers are leaving because of it. They're leaving the profession, or many aren't coming into the profession because they hear the talk around town. So, we got to find that balance, and we have to take care of ourselves as well, and our families.
When Jennifer finishes her dissertation, I'll make sure y'all know. But I say that not because you need to see how principals handle it. That's just her focus group. I think it can pertain to all of us. And I've preached this before, and I'll continue to. I don't need an alarm now. I wake up at somewhere around 5 o'clock, whether I go to bed at midnight or 10 o'clock or whatever. Somehow it just happens, and I guess that happens after years and years. But I learned it, I guess, in a learned behavior, because that's when I could get up and do my quiet time with God. And I wanted that to start my day. And you start figuring those things to balance. I was reading here, Dale did mention that principals and assistant principals have the flexibility. They can take days off, and y'all have seen this, I'm sure, and maybe not been so happy about it, when a principal would take a day off and you're sitting there laboring when the kids are there. I don't think that's often what is done, because much like you, if they take a day off when the kids are in, the price you pay the next day is often not worth taking the day off. But I would say to you that what's critical about this case study is exactly what Phyllis said, and what all of you are thinking. You're going to have to figure that out, and I don't have the answer any more than you have the answer of how you do it. But every one of you, I feel confident, has more than one outlet, and if we can make sure that we set those outlets as priorities, not the priority, but as priorities in our lives, then we can navigate this, and we can get through COVID, and we can get through the stresses of job and home and community and all these things that come into play. That's why I thought this was a vitally important case study. Dale, you got anything on this one?
My friend Joey Birch called me and said, I've been offered a high school principal job. And I had just left the high school. I was in the central office. He and I had been peers in middle and junior high. And I said, yes. And he said, well, give me some insight. I said, it's real simple. You've got to get past the part where when you're at work, you feel like you need to be home. And when you're home, you feel like you need to be at work. If you can put them both behind you, you'll be fine. Now, that's easier said than done, but that's the trick. When you work, you work. And when you're home, you're home. And you have to learn that. And it's learned behavior. Now, as I wrote in the chat, you can take some annual leave days. And there's some times here or there that you might need to do that. Now, you're going to have twice as much when you come back, but that's just the way it goes. But, you know, one of the things that I would say is when you become an administrator, don't feel guilty about taking that day if you need a day. Like Phyllis said, it's better than killing yourself. If you need to take a day, you do have that latitude that teachers don't have. It doesn't cost you. You just take one of your vacation days, your annual leave days. But you have to do self-care. But the biggest thing is when we work, we work. When we play, and we don't mix the two. That's easier said than done, but that's the trick.
All right, we got 8 minutes. So we got 5 minutes to do case 40. Group 3.
Let me share my screen real quick.
We'd have done a lot better if I didn't get off on tangents.
Okay, so case 40 was a tug of conscience. And this is about a school, Southern Middle School. The area that it's in is recognized as a desirable school because it's in a very low income area where unemployment, child abuse, violence is very prevalent and prominent. And it's considered sort of like the safe place, the anchor in the community. The teachers often pull from their own pockets to support the students, buying clothes, paying for students to play rec basketball, whatever families and children need. The principal lives in the community that the school serves and does everything she can to encourage parent community involvement. So there's just a really good relationship with the community and parents and the school. As a result of No Child Left Behind, so this is back a little bit, officials are demanding greater accountability for schools in terms of test scores and academics. However, the principal feels a little bit of a moral tug to address the social emotional needs of her students as a priority because it is such a high needs school. But she also understands that if scores don't improve, she will likely, along with other staff members, be transferred out of the school into other schools, which means the relationships and the safe place that the school has become will no longer exist. So basically, a couple of questions that were asked were, if you were the advisor, how would you help the principal solve this dilemma? Is the primary role of educators that of instruction and pupil achievement, or is it about the overall growth and development of students into responsible citizens? And then how can the principal reorient the faculty, students, and parents to incorporate the demand for higher levels of achievement, and how can she refocus her own priorities? So some of the suggestions in terms of how to address this is using leadership schools to educate the staff on the mission that the school has, and to kind of expand that to the academic side. So keeping in place that social emotional support they have, but also emphasizing achievement and learning in their work. Finding a way to tap into the caring nature of the faculty and translate that care into academic results as well. Since the relationships are already there, it may be easier to kind of put that focus on academics because those relationships have been built. There were suggestions about adult advocates, so every student getting an adult advocate in the building through an advisory program to support the social emotional needs so that more time can be focused on academics in the classroom. Creating teams for joint planning so that it's more of the entire staff is vested in it. And then tap into unused resources since parents and community members are already so involved. There was a suggestion about using them to also support academic achievement. And that pretty much wraps it up. Sorry, it was so fast.
All right, thank you for getting through that quickly. And so this is a case of priorities. And the idea of, do we develop the whole child or do we focus on the academic achievement of the child? And I think all of us would say, you know, it is incumbent upon us to develop the whole child and put the SEL in there and all of these things that we can do to contribute to building a good citizen. I'm reminded that we sometimes at Gardner Webb, Dale and I have talked about this. This is another athletic analogy, but a lot of our ball teams at Gardner Webb don't win. So every year we talk about winning the Good Sportsmanship Award, and aren't we proud of our young athletes, because we go out there and represent the university by getting the fewest unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. And I don't know if y'all noticed this, not as parents and everything, but you know, there are two awards you get when you're not real competitive. One is the Good Sportsmanship Award, and one is Most Improved. And so in college, I was in a class, in a PE class that you had to take, and part of it was tennis. And I worked my way to be the worst tennis player in the class, and that's not an easily achieved thing. So but the professor said, "Steve, I'm gonna give you the award for Most Improved Tennis Player." And you know, I knew exactly what that meant. So did everybody else that was in there. Here's the thing. I think we all want to develop the whole child, but let's go back to what Dale has said over and over again. Results matter. And we've got to remember that. Results matter. And as we develop the whole child, part of that is the esteem that comes from success. And so let's keep that in mind as we close out this case. Dale, wrap us up.
Can't give kids, you cannot give children self-esteem. You can give them opportunities to earn it through achievement. Let me say that again. We have found out through years of research, and we have finally gotten away from the middle school notion of the 1960s that you had to give kids self-esteem. Can't give it to them. You can give them opportunities for them to earn it. And remember, if scores didn't matter, we wouldn't keep them. Thank you.
7:59. How about that? Friends, you now, believe it or not, we've pounded you for weeks on end on Tuesday nights. You now have a couple of Tuesdays where you don't have class. I know you regret that immensely. We will be together on Saturday, October 9th. We will begin at 9 o'clock. Please be on time. Please be prepared with the various laws of leadership that you are assigned. We will probably go about 15 minutes each. Keep track of that. We will take a lunch break, but since we're not doing face-to-face, we won't take the 30 minutes for lunch break, but we will take breaks periodically because Zoom days are long, and I understand that. You understand that even better than I do. But we will intend to finish on that Saturday somewhere between 3 and 3:30. It will not be later than 3:30. I promise you, we will get through that day. Anybody have any questions or comments?
So that will just be Saturday or Saturday and Sunday?
Well, you see, my part is Saturday. Dale's takes over Sunday. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I shouldn't have. Thank you, Mary, for clarifying that. I'm just referring to the Saturday part. You will have class on Sunday. But I can't tell you how long Dale's going to go, but at some point you'll be discussing sausage.
Well, I just hope we get done before class on Tuesday night.
No. Everybody, we respect y'all so much and admire what you do, and are thankful for everything that you do for children. And I don't know how you're persevering, but I'll go back to the case study. Take care of yourself. Blessings, everybody. Good night.
All right.